Okay, we're continuing Second Chronicles, talking about the prosperity of the kingdom at this time and Solomon's success and Israel's success. This is the pinnacle of their nation and their not empire, but the height of their power, blessings. God is blessing them. God is blessing Solomon, and we just ended last time with chapter 7, verse 14, that famous speech there. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. It's a very famous verse, and something we discussed last time, how the first half of the verse is what people forget about, right? People like to point their finger at God and say, "Where's your God now?" Or point at the Christian and say that, And then you read them this verse and they just ignore what you're saying. But that verse it's really sums it up very well, So I encourage you to highlight that verse. It's pretty important. But we're going to continue from chapter 8 of 2 Chronicles. We're going to begin in prayer, and we'll start reading. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time to study your word. Please teach us. Open our minds. Open our hearts. Reveal to us your truth, wisdom, and knowledge. And please have all of your will in all of our lives. In Jesus' name, Yeshua. Amen. The energy and fame of Solomon. Verse 1 of chapter 8 of 2 Chronicles. And it came to pass at the end of 20 years, wherein Solomon had built the house of the Lord and his own house, that the cities which Huram had restored to Solomon, Solomon built them and caused the children of Israel to dwell there. And Solomon went to Hamath Zobah and prevailed against it. And he built Tadmor in the wilderness and all the store cities, which he built in Hamath. Also he built Beth-horon the upper and Beth-horon the nether, fenced cities with walls, gates, and bars. And Baalath and all the store cities that Solomon had, and all the chariot cities and the cities of the horsemen, and all that Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem and in Lebanon, and throughout all the land of his dominion. God was blessing Solomon, and I think Solomon could have continued to do whatever he wanted. He could have built and built and built whatever he wanted, and God would have continued to bless him if he had continued to walk the walk, as we were saying back last chapter in verse 17, the walk. If you want to maintain that blessing with God, you got to walk with him. If you start to fall behind and let yourself wallow in the mud, God doesn't want to walk with you anymore, and he's going to take away his blessing. And that's, I think, they're summing up all these building projects that Solomon does, but what all that does is it increases the debt, increases spending. I jokingly said last year, I said, Democrat Party, what do? Tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. That's a line from a cartoon. And that's typically what they do. They tax and spend, and then they tax some more and increase spending, and then they tax even more and increase spending until they tax the people until they die, and they increase spending even more. And if they had it their way, they would go full-blown socialist and take away all the guns and tax us into oblivion until we just died. We all died. And then they'd have a bunch of slaves. And that's where we're headed right now. But you see the stop on this, right? With shortly after Solomon is done, then there's revolution, there's civil war, because people say, hey, taxes are too high, you lowlifes. Lower our taxes or we're done with you. And the successor to Solomon, Rehoboam, says, no, I'm actually going to increase your taxes. I need to do more spending. I need to build a movie theater over here, okay? So I need to increase your taxes, okay? I'm going to put on the scorpion tax levy, okay? Scorpion tax, boom! And then they said, no, we're done. We're cutting the kingdom. We're cut off from you. We don't want to have anything to do with David's house anymore. It's sad. But I think this country is toward that point, you know. Liberalism, the Democrat Party. Why would you want anything to do with it now, after everything going on? How can you? You look at the details of that party and what they've done. All the rich white people that vote for that party are just doing it out of pity. You know, they do it because they think that they're contributing to the solution. They're not. They're contributing to the self-destruction of the United States of America. That's what they're contributing to. It's very sad. Now, I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect. They're not. They have all kinds. They're probably just as bad. You know, I wish we had another choice. And they said, well, what about Bernie? No. See, we get way off topic. That's why I should shut my mouth. But see, tax and spend. That's what I want to sum up with these first 6 verses. 7. And what if Solomon was still walking with God, God would have allowed him to do that. And God would have blessed him in some other way. Probably, oh, we found a gold mine right here. Well, how about that? Where did that come from? You know, God would have revealed that to them. And hey, now we can build more stuff. Why not? You know, if he continued walking with God, God could have continued to bless him. But that's the stipulation. He did not walk the walk that David walked. So God had to take away the blessing, and that's why you see what happens with Rehoboam and the revolution, civil war. Sad. But you see how this is laid up. Tax and spend, tax and spend. Too many tax and spend levies and all that garbage. 7. As for all the people that were left of the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, which were not of Israel, but of their children who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel consumed not, them did Solomon make to pay tribute until this day. And why is that there? But of their children who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel consumed not, them did Solomon make to pay tribute until this day. It's another indicator. What did God tell them to do? To the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites, which are not of Israel. What did God tell them to do? He told them to wipe them out in Joshua's day. And they failed to do that. And now, as God said to them, it's going to be a thorn in your side forever. And here we are. Solomon's not doing what he's supposed to do. He's enslaving them, basically. Does God approve of that? I don't think so. You know, I think this is a mistake in verse 8 that Solomon makes. Another mistake. 9. But of the children of Israel did Solomon make no servants for his work, but they were men of war, and chief of his captains, and captains of his chariots and horsemen. Doesn't it sound like they're just becoming Egypt, you know? I'm just throwing that out there, you know? Don't you want to work your own land and, you know, no, we want slaves. You know. You just want to sit on your butt and eat strawberries all day and watch your slaves do the work, you know? That becomes unhealthy. It's mentally unhealthy. It's sitting on your butt. What, don't you want to work your own land with your own two hands? Didn't God tell you to do that anyway? That you're going to, by the sweat of your brow, you're going to do this? You know? No, we're just going to get some slaves to do it. I don't think so. I think these are all big mistakes. And to take the place of Egypt, that's what it sounds like, you know? I don't know. Maybe that's not. But the slavery thing, God doesn't approve of that, certainly. 10. And these were the chief of King Solomon's officers, even 250, that bare rule over the people. And Solomon brought up the daughter of Pharaoh out of the city of David into the house that he had built for her, for he said, My wife shall not dwell in the house of David, king of Israel, because the places are holy, whereunto the ark of the Lord hath come. See, I just said that a minute ago. Doesn't it sound like they're becoming Egypt? And here we are. He marries Pharaoh's daughter. So there's it's interesting. And he has to build a separate house for his wife because, you know, he has to put his wife there in a mega palace. You know, tax and spend. Let's get some more money to build that. And we'll just put her in there. You know, I'll have sex with her, you know, once every month. You know, I'll visit once a month. But then I need my super palace over here, my ultra super mega palace where I have my other 1,000 wives, you know. I'll just be there most of the time. So, you know. Then Solomon offered burnt offerings unto the Lord on the altar of the Lord, which he had built before the porch. Even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moses, on the Sabbaths, and on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts, 3 times in the year, even in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles. And he appointed, according to the order of David his father, the courses of the priests to their service, and the Levites to their charges, to praise and minister before the priests, as the duty of every day required. The porters also by their courses at every gate, for so had David the man of God commanded. And they departed not from the commandment of the king unto the priests and Levites concerning any matter, or concerning the treasures. Now all the work of Solomon was prepared unto the day of the foundation of the house of the Lord, and until it was finished. So the house of the Lord was perfected. 17. Then went Solomon to Ezion-Geber and to Eloth at the seaside in the land of Edom. And Huram sent him by the hands of his servants ships, and servants that had knowledge of the sea. And they went with the servants of Solomon to Ophir, and took thence 450 talents of gold, and brought them to King Solomon. And really, at the time, you know, a sea trading merchant empire, for them to have established that would have solidified their empire, really, or their kingdom. But I think they were just tiptoeing into that, you know. They didn't have too many ships, did they? I'm not sure, but just throwing that out there. Sounds like Hiram is helping him with building ships, but I think the ships end up getting destroyed. I think there's a verse talking about that somewhere. Chapter 9, Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, verse 1. And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to prove Solomon with hard questions at Jerusalem, with a very great company, and camels that bear spices, and gold in abundance, and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions, and there was nothing hid from Solomon which he told her not. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Solomon, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, his cupbearers also, and their apparel, and his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. See, you can be a fake, you can put on this air, and you can put on a lot of makeup or whatever, and put on the fancy clothes and do all this. You can keep that up for a little while, but really Solomon was doing that day after day after day after day. That's how much God blessed him and made everything magnificent. It was the height of their power, the height of their kingdom, and she's probably looking in the little alleyways and the little cracks and corners and looking for something to critique. She looks in a closet somewhere and she's hoping to find like a dead body or something. And she doesn't see any of that. This really is a magnificent kingdom. She, her spirit left her. She's shocked at how magnificent this kingdom is. There was no more spirit in her. It's interesting. Could that be an indicator of, I don't know. It's interesting how it mentions spirit, though. 5. And she said to the king, It was a true report which I heard in mine own land of thine acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not their words until I came, and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the one half of the greatness of thy wisdom was not told me, for thou exceedest the fame that I heard. So she only heard half of it. And when she witnesses it, she's like, those stories that I thought were an exaggeration were actually pretty humble. You're twice what they even claimed. And now I see it all, and she witnessed all of it. She saw it all. And can't even imagine. 7. Happy are thy men, and happy. Yeah, see, you could put on this whole ridiculous display, but then you go talk to a guy, a servant guy or a butler or something. Hey, how are you really doing here, You're like, well, he's blackmailing me. He's got a knife to my wife and my kids. I can't joke about it, and you talk to the different servants and stuff, and you could find out that, oh, this is not what it appears to be. But see, she probably did that, and what she got was, hello, everything's fine. Is there anything I can get you, Lady Sheba? Hello? Ah, isn't it lovely today? Yes, indeed. Can I get you a drink? Oh, it is, it's just constant jubilance and magnificence, and everybody's happy, and they really are happy. It's not like he's got them blackmailed or entrapped to do all this, or they're slaves or miserable, or they hate their jobs, or what have you. It really is great. Happy are thy men, and happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and hear thy wisdom. Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighted in thee, to set thee on his throne, to be king for the Lord thy God. Because thy God loved Israel, to establish them forever. Therefore made he thee king over them, to do judgment and justice. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and of spices great abundance, and precious stones. Neither was there any such spice as the queen of Sheba gave King Solomon. And the servants also of Huram and the servants of Solomon, which brought gold from Ophir, brought algum trees and precious stones. And the king made of the algum trees terraces to the house of the Lord and to the king's palace, and harps and psalteries for singers, and there were none such seen before in the land of Judah. And King Solomon gave to the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which she had brought unto the king. So she turned and went away to her own land, she and her servants. See, that's how you should use the blessing that he's given you. Use it as a testimony to others and show them, God gave me all of this. God did this for me. I give the glory back to God. I do nothing. I am actually a bum. I'm nothing without God. And she finds that out later, when Solomon, things start to go downhill. It's because God is leaving, right? Solomon's revenue and splendor, verse 13. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. To separate the gold coming in into a separate verse, back in verse 18 of chapter 8, that's an indicator there that maybe this wasn't meant to be. Maybe Israel wasn't meant to be a part of a sea trading type empire. Maybe that's what that's indicating. But see, that gold's coming in, and it's 666 talents, indicating that that number is associated with Satan. That's his number, the devil, Lucifer. And that's what's coming in, indicating that maybe that's Satan coming in, rather than just a big pile of gold. Maybe you can do some whole ridiculous ceremony with a bunch of demons dancing around, and there's Satan standing on top of that gold coming in, every year by year. He's creeping into your kingdom, Maybe you could symbolically think about it that way. It's interesting. 14. Beside that which chapmen and merchants brought, and all the kings of Arabia and governors of the country brought gold and silver to Solomon. And King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold. 600 shekels of beaten gold went to one target. Right, gold has no value anymore, right? And I can tax and spend as much as I want, so I might as well make a bunch of shields. Why not? I mean, who cares about the people? 16. And 300 shields made he of beaten gold. 300 shekels of gold went to one shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with pure gold. And there were 6 steps to the throne with a footstool of gold, which were fastened to the throne, and stays on each side of the sitting place, and 2 lions standing by the stays. And 12 lions stood there on the one side, and on the other side, and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. And all the drinking vessels of King Solomon were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was not anything accounted of in the days of Solomon. Yes, silver? Bleh. Who cares about that? That's like a penny. Just throw that in the river. You don't need that. Silver? Bleh. Can't give it back to the people, though. That'd be... Yeah. It has no value anyway. 21. For the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Huram every 3 years. Once came the ships of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. That apes and peacocks, really. And King Solomon passed all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom. And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom that God had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver, vessels of gold, raiment, harness and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities and with the king at Jerusalem. And they don't mention his wives. They mention that back in Kings, right? His 1,000 wives. But they do mention his other big sins, right? The gold, the 666 associated with the gold. And then they mention the horses here. 25. And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities, and with the king at Jerusalem. And he reigned over all the kings from the river even unto the land of the Philistines, and to the border of Egypt. And the king made silver in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar trees made he as the sycamore trees that are in the low plains in abundance. And they brought unto Solomon horses out of Egypt and out of all lands. That's that last verse, bringing horses out of Egypt. That's something specific that God warned against, right? The death of Solomon, verse 29. Now the rest of the acts of Solomon, first and last, are they not written in the book of Nathan the prophet, and in the prophecy of Ahijah the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo the seer against Jeroboam the son of Nebat? And Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. So now, next chapter will begin with the civil war, division of the kingdom. Well, it's technically not civil war yet. Like how it is right now, where people are talking about that civil war is starting. But until somebody starts shooting at one side, I don't think technically we're there. But you could interpret that we are with these riots going on, because it's just insane. But those three sins, the wives, turning them away from God, really it's the turning them away from God. That was the main thing. The wives made him worship Molech and Chemosh. I don't know if Baal came on the scene at that time. That was really with Jezebel and Ahab, right? But Molech, Chemosh, Asherah, I don't know if the Asherah poles are the high places, which are druids, that could be ancient evil from the people who lived in the land before. I think that all goes back to, it all relates back to Satanism. Everything outside of God relates back to that. And so that is what was really turning Solomon's heart away from God. He wasn't walking with God because he was with these 1,000 wives that were turning his heart away from God and getting him to build these structures for Chemosh and Molech and all these crazy things, That was the main sin, but it was also the gold, collecting too much gold. He specifically warns against that, the 666 talents of gold, and then also collecting horses, getting horses back from Egypt. That's another sign indicating returning to Egypt. Do you want to go back into your slavery? Well, here you go. And that's what's going to happen to them now, Because Egypt, they were in Egypt. God freed them from their slavery in Egypt. By his mighty hand, he freed them from that, and now you want to go back to that? Those are the three main sins Solomon made, but I think the big one is the idolatry, or the thou shalt not have any other gods before me. And he puts a lot of other gods before him, Sad. But here we are at the height, and now we're going down. Okay, chapter 10 next time. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.